So as we covered in a previous video, there's been a lot going on when it comes to this Diddy trial. Obviously, Judge AS, he's having an issue figuring out how he's going to sentence Diddy. We've seen so much back and forth between the judge, the prosecution, and Diddy's defense team. So the judge recently came out and he said, hey, Diddy, I know you wanted bail, but I'm not going to grant you bail. Sorry, you're going to have to stay in jail. And there were a couple reasons the judge said that that was going to happen. We're going to talk about it here in a second. But after that happened, Diddy and his team still aren't happy with the judge's decision, obviously, because what Diddy's being held on, which are 2 counts of the Mann Act, does not really require that he be held in jail, according to his defense team. And they're saying you really can't find any cases to where someone has been held without bond for being found guilty of these type of crimes. So when it comes to his bond, this is what Judge AS had to say, and I'll read this quickly. He said, Defendant Combs renews his request for bail pending his sentencing. On this application, Combs doesn't contest that detention is mandatory for his crimes of conviction. He relies solely on the limited exception of mandatory detention where the court finds by clear and convincing evidence that the person is not likely to flee or pose a danger or safety to any other person or the community if released. Again, the judge said, you guys admitted during the trial that Diddy was a violent person, and for that reason, I'm going to keep him in jail. Also, even though he's not a flight risk, and even though his plane is somewhere overseas and we have his passports, I don't want to risk it because if he's released and he harms somebody, that's going to be on me, right? And then also says, secondly, the judge says, exceptional reasons why such person's detention would not be appropriate. Exceptional reasons exist where there's a unique combination of circumstances giving the situations that are out of the ordinary. Okay. This statutory framework creates a presumption in favor of detention that places a plainly substantial burden of proof on the defendant seeking release. And the judge then said, you guys didn't meet that burden of proof. I still think you need to say here, well, Mark Agnifilo is not giving up because according to TMZ, they're still fighting. What did they say? Diddy's lawyer may ask for home confinement instead of prison. Let's see if they can find a way to do this. Diddy will probably be sentenced to confinement for 1 to 2 years, the estimations are showing, and his lawyer may ask the judge to let him do the time at his home, which would be amazing. Mark Agnifilo, the lead attorney on Diddy's legal team, tells us Diddy tells us that Diddy needs and wants therapy for both anger issues and substance abuse, but says prisons aren't equipped to provide optimal health in those areas. Honestly, they put you at a greater risk of being found guilty of another crime, which is unfortunate. Harvey asked Mark Agnifilo squarely, will he ask the judge to place his client on home confinement rather than prison when he is sentenced? And he said that's on the table. Although Agnifilo said asking for home confinement was a possibility, he went on to say he's already assembling a team on the outside to prove Diddy will with professional help, adding he would make therapy a condition for supervised release. Diddy has told Agnifilo he's aware he needs therapy and has lived with deficits all his adult life. Agnifilo says Diddy vowed to make the most of his incarceration to address his deficits. And then they have the full interview here. So we're just going to watch a couple of clips from Mark and see what he had to say about Diddy maybe staying home for those 1 to 3 years instead of being in prison. Do y'all think what you've seen from this judge gives us an idea of how he's going to rule or how he's going to sentence Diddy? The defense might be able to make a case here, but I don't know. We'll see.
Facts here. He has anger issues. And has also had substance abuse issues. Is he getting professional help for both of those right now, and has he been?
So the answer is yes. He has therapists that we have basically lined up for him from the outside. The MDC is very strong in certain areas. One of the areas it's not so strong in, it does not have meaningful programming. And so that is not really available to him on the inside, as though if he were at a traditional post-conviction facility, there'd be more programming for him. So we have put things together.
Like this.
He's working very hard in therapy. We know who his therapists are. We don't seek to break the privilege that they have, but I know that he's working hard on all these issues. As you might remember, we got him into a batterers program even before he was arrested on the federal case.
Yep.
And
Smart.
frankly, I wish he had done that 30 years ago.
When it comes time for sentencing, would you argue to the judge that the best way to get real professional help is on the outside, not the inside, and therefore house arrest or just house confinement might be more appropriate than prison?
That is certainly an argument that I may make. I mean, I think
sense.
I am certainly going to be asking the judge, as a condition of his supervised release, that he have appropriate counseling and therapy. I think he needs it. I think he thinks he needs it, and that's the important part. What I think is really irrelevant. He believes that he needs this. He believes that this would make him a better person. And the one thing that he says more than anything else, and he said this consistently for the last 10 and a half months, is I am going to make the most of my time in jail. This happened for a reason.
Good for him.
I have deficits. I've had them my entire adult life, and they came back, to bite me. But I'm not just going to suffer through this time or blame anyone else for this time. I'm going to take account of my own actions. I'm going to try to do better. I'm going to have the last chapters of my life be the best chapters of my life in all the ways that really matter. To be a loving person, to be as close as possible with my children, to really rely on my faith. And I think he's going to do all of those things.
So house confinement is something you would seek?
Possibly. I mean, I have to see how our sentencing memo comes together. We have a very busy August and early September lined up for us, putting together what I think will be a very, very important document in the form of this sentencing memorandum.
And also, you have to remember, Gina, Diddy's ex, who was also named as victim 3 in this trial, wrote a letter to the judge and said, "Hey, judge, I've been with Diddy recently. I've seen how he is. He is not the same man that he was before. He's not the same man that he was when he was with Cassie, not the same man he was when he was with Jane Doe. He's changed. He's all about family. He's learned his lessons, and he's working to do better." This is someone who was listed as a victim during this Diddy trial. So Mark goes on to say this about Diddy's possible confinement.
The road that is right in front of him is we are going to have to fight very hard and argue very intelligently to get him a reasonable sentence where he can get out in relatively short order. And then he's out. So what does he do first? What he does first, and I think he does it for quite a while, is he is now present for his 7 children.
Yeah.
He has a beautiful mother who is getting older. And I think he's going to want to spend time with his mother and with his kids and get reacquainted with them on the outside. They've all stood by him, of course, and they visit him in jail on a regular basis. But he needs to get back to his life with them, his life with the other people who love him and miss him. And that is going to be the next chapter and maybe the next several chapters of his life. One thing that I think is true about my assessment of Sean Combs, I believe he's always going to do something special, something that other people haven't done. And while he did say to me, as I said, that he hopes one day his fortune would take him maybe back to Madison Square Garden, I think that is, if ever, years down the road. And that is not in his immediate conception.
Yeah.
That is something, quite frankly, I hope for him. I hope he comes out and he does important things. He's working very hard in jail. I think he is spending a lot of time thinking about aspects of himself, maybe some of the aspects of himself that caused him to be there. I think he's someone who's very conscious of the fact that he has these, tremendous blessings in his life, but he also has imperfections, as we all do. And I think he's really spent a lot of time thinking about that. And the word that I used been using, and I want to use it now, is redemption.
And that's the biggest thing here. How is the judge going to view the sentencing? How's he going to view Diddy? Is he going to view Diddy as someone who got lucky and who should have maybe been found guilty of the trafficking and RICO? Or is he going to see Diddy as someone who over the past several years has been trying to better himself and has been focusing more on the right things? I want to know what y'all think about this in the comments and in the chat. What's the judge's decision going to be? Because we're getting close to October, closing to that sentencing time, and the judge has already denied bond once. Will they keep fighting? I think so. But what the judge's decision is going to be, let me know what you think.